Today we have Amit Dahanukar, Chairman and Managing Director, Tilaknagar Industries with us. Amit is keeping his ear close to the ground even as he rides high on the success of Mansion House Brandy. He is acutely aware of the need to capitalize on the emerging consumption trends and opportunities in the beverage alcohol market. Buoyed by strong tailwinds, he is geared up for ambitious expansion in terms of products and geographical reach. Welcome Amit to the Let's Talk on Spiritz TV.
Thank you, Shalini. Thank you for having me on this program. It's a pleasure.
So Amit, there have been lots of reports in the market about Tilaknagar Industries in last few years. And the company is witnessing a complete turnaround after going through some years under financial stress. How did you manage to overcome financial stress and achieve profitability?
So the financial stress, I think, we accounts became NPA in about 2015, and essentially there was a three-pronged strategy to reduce the indebtedness of the company. The first phase was a comprehensive debt restructuring program which we entered into with Edelweiss Asset Reconstruction Company, where the debt was recast and we had a schedule of 4 years in which to make the payments. The second was that with some of our financial institutions we had one-time settlements. So we had compromise settlements with some of the lenders, and this was achieved from commencing from 2017 and culminating in 2020. So over 3 years we did one-time settlements with some of our lenders, and B, we entered into a restructuring agreement with Edelweiss. Once this was completed, it addressed some of the over-leverage which the company had, but it still didn't address a lot of the working capital constraints of the business, because as you might be aware, the working capital component, because of the high taxation, is quite significant in this industry, and that was not permitting the company to really grow. So to address that, we raised funds in the span of 18 months through 3 preferential allotments. We raised 311 crores. So it was done in 3 phases. In the first phase, we raised 126 crores in November of 21. In June of 2022, we raised another 85 crores. And the last fundraise we completed in November of 2022, where we raised 100 crores. So it totaled to 311. So once we had finished the fundraise, so the combination of the debt restructuring, the one-time settlements, and the infusion of funds, I think that was the right combination of enabling us to really come out of this financial indebtedness. And Shalini, the other thing is that sometimes however much of restructuring you do, if the business itself is not profitable or if that's not growing, how much ever deep restructuring you do, the company is not going to get out of the difficulty. But fortunately in our case, the underlying business was very strong. We had a brand which enjoys, or rather have a brand which has tremendous brand equity in the market, and that along with the fundraise and the restructuring enabled us to comfortably come out of the troubled period and then grow the business. So underlying business was very strong. The fundamentals were in place. So I think the combination of all these three has resulted in where we are right now.
So as I think you will agree that no company can get success without a perfect team.
Yes.
So how did the change in human resource policies and corporate culture attract and retain young talents and foster a more innovative work culture?
Sure.
What role did leadership play in driving the cultural shift within the company?
So I think it's a very good question and a very pertinent question, because I truly believe that just having done this without the right people, we would have not got the results. So I think the HR element and having the right leadership has been very critical for us to achieve our goals up till this date, and I think will drive the company's success in the short term future also. So, fundamentally, I think what changed, Shalini, is that the leadership which we had, and they were very good at managing stressful situations. The earlier leadership which we had across key functions, they managed the ship very well when we were going through stress and difficulty. But as the company got out of the stress and moved towards consolidation and then onwards onto growth, I think we needed, the company needed fresh talent at that place, because it's sometimes, if I could draw a comparison, I would draw it with cricket. That sometimes you have players who are very good defensively, but they are not able to come on the front foot. So as we moved from a period of consolidation, the team needed people who didn't have the baggage of the past.
Right.
Where all the decisions were coming from a very defensive mindset.
Right. It's
because
it's
all about surviving,
Ganguly.
right? Yeah. So we needed to move to a set of people who were not carrying that baggage behind them,
right,
in terms of the defensive mindset and the mindset of stress, and B, we needed some amount of risk taking. I think for a business, as a business tries to grow, tries to expand, and tries to have disproportionate gains compared to industry, and some amount of risk taking is paramount. So we needed a set of team which would be able to take those calculated risks. So I think that was one aspect on which I concentrated a lot in terms of bringing that leadership in. And if you see our top management profile now in 2023, it's very different from what it was in 2020.
Okay.
The leadership has totally changed. I think there are a lot of young leaders now. We brought, in terms of our marketing, we brought Ahmed Rahimtullah on board, vast experience in terms of consumer category, and I think one of the key reasons why we were attracted to Ahmed was that he's worked in a very competitive space. I mean, the whiskey is incredibly competitive, and the organization he came from before has fared well in the whiskey category. So I think being in that competitive space, that right mindset is there, I think, and my brief to Ahmed right very early on was very clear, that the brandy category is the second largest category in IMFL, but unfortunately there's no communication, or as we say it in marketing parlance, there are no category codes for brandy. So I think the first assignment was really to set those category codes for brandy and establish communication. Till now, brandy has not been a communicative category at all.
At all.
So that was the assignment. So we brought Ahmed on board. We had.
So your brief to Ahmed was like, now you attack, not defend.
Yes, it was.
Something
I think
like
that the time for defense was over, right? So, and I think what's enabled us to slightly adopt more aggressive sales and marketing strategies is, of course, has gone hand in hand with the financial engineering which we have done in terms of consistently reducing debt from a peak of 1200 crores in March 19, and March 23 the debt was 250 crores. So there's been a very dramatic and aggressive reduction in debt, which has reduced the finance burden. Right, at 2019 the interest burden itself was 180 crores, which last year would be 40 crores and projected 25 crores. So that dramatic reduction, very aggressive reduction in finance costs, that's easing up cash flow to be able to reinvest. And where will we reinvest? We'll reinvest in growing our business, in growing our brands,
right.
Investing in perhaps new categories in the future. So that is how we intend to grow. So
right. So my question is to you. Next one is on products. So till now, Tilaknagar Industries has one brand which is mentioned House Brandy, and no doubt that it's a most preferred brandy and loved brandy. So why there has been no other new category from the Tilaknagar house? And second question is, will we see new brand launches in different categories in near future?
So Shalini, our company Tilaknagar, we have been a brandy first company. Our Mansion House Brandy last year, as per the Drinks International report, it was the fastest growing brandy brand globally. and second fastest growing brand. We also had one of our other brandy brands, Courier Napoleon, break into the Millionaires Club with very impressive growth. I think both the brands, Mansion House grew more than 40% and Courier Napoleon grew 50%. So now we have two brandy brands in the Millionaires Club. So certainly a brandy first company, and I think there's not going to be any defocus from the brandy category. I think our journey has just started in terms of what I spoke about earlier, in terms of setting the category codes for brandy and really establishing a voice for brandy. As Emma that pointed out to me earlier, that brandy is about 20-25% market share in terms of IMFL.
And but that too in South only.
That too in South, but very little share of the voice. The voice is largely taken up by whiskey. And then vodka takes up a little bit of voice. Yeah. But for brandy, there's no noise around brandy, and I think as a predominantly brandy company, I think the onus is on us now to establish that. And in terms of the brandy portfolio also, we had a very interesting innovation last year where we introduced Flandy, which is flavored brandy. So I think it's an industry first and first in Asia where we have flavored brandy. We launched Flandy with the Mansion House franchise in 3 flavors initially: orange, peach and cherry. So that was an innovation which we hope with with that we are hoping to play in the flavored spirits category. So we're not looking at really just at flavored brandy. Essentially we're saying that this is a flavored spirit, and hopefully we are able to attract a slightly different set of consumers than what our current Mansion House TG is. But of course this is a long-term process, right? I mean, markets are cultivated over a period of time, but we do hope to remain invested in really establishing Flandy as a preferred choice for a younger generation. So, and regarding new categories, I think the endeavor will certainly be to look also beyond brandy. Of course, while brandy for the medium term, at least for the short and medium term, of course brandy will drive our revenues and will drive our growth, but we will look at expanding the footprint beyond brandy. We have taken certain baby strides in that direction. We have a brand, Blue Lagoon Gin, and we've revamped the packaging totally. It's a very disruptive pack which we have now. So we have the plain flavor.
Is it already in the market?
It's already in the market. It's been launched in the Northeast. It's been launched in Assam. And we'll cover the Northeast and we'll cover the Eastern markets. So that's a brand which we have recently introduced. We have a very young positioning for that, which is Just Dive In. So let's see. I mean, it's very early days, but in terms of our corporate strategy, I mean, beyond brandy, what you asked me is, I think we will start seeding our interest in other categories also.
Great. So we will see other categories as well. Okay. So as you know that right now a craft movement is happening in India. Every company if you ask is producing one or the other craft products. So do you also plans to invest in making some craft spirits or anything like that?
So certainly we have plans and we are in that process of developing our own craft spirits.
Great.
But while that would have taken some time to organically be ready, but we had a very interesting proposition before us when we met with Spaceman Spirits. They are the makers of Samsara Gin, Samsara Craft Gin, which is...
Yeah, I have heard that you have taken, Tilaknagar Industries has taken some stakes in Spaceman's Spirits lab.
Yes.
Is it right?
So we were very encouraged with the progress of Samsara in the craft gin space. I mean, it's relatively very young. It's a product which was introduced in 2020, but they've grown rapidly in the craft spirit space.
Product.
They've launched a pink gin, which is again an industry first. It's a very loved pink gin, and we loved the founders, the enthusiasm of the founders, the passion of the founders, and we decided that initially we will take a 10% stake in Samsara. So that is an indirect participation in the craft spirits. So let's see how that relationship goes. I think we are very optimistic about the future of craft spirits.
So both the parties are young.
Yes.
So I think something will come out. So Second important thing that you, I think, will agree that everybody is producing single malts right now. Everybody has a raw malt in their warehouses. So every company, like you name it, a big domestic company, Amrut, Paul John, Radico Khaitan, Peter Scott, Codes, and then Piccadilly, and Divans, and now I have heard that ALCO Brew distilleries, they are also in the process of producing some single malts. And I should not forget Mohan Macken's Solon single malt something, Solon Gold, I think. So do you also have plans to produce, because I'm sure you must have had this raw malt in your warehouses. So do you have any plans to produce?
So we certainly have aspirations, but currently
that should be there.
Yeah, I must admit that we have so much on our plate right now in terms of expansion of the brandy category and some other categories like gin, which we are working on, that I'm not very sure in terms of timelines when we might be ready, but yes, aspirationally we certainly have ambitions that at some point of time we will have a Tilaknagar single malt. But it would be very hard to really give any kind of timelines on that.
Okay, we have recently announced that every year we will celebrate Indian Single Malt Day in the month of August, third week of August every year.
That's very nice.
Yeah, recently we launched, and all the brands like Godawan, have you heard about Diageo's?
Yes.
So all of them had participated in that. We just launched at the end of August, and from next year we will do some consumer activities.
Okay.
So, and it was taken very positively by the industry as well as for the consumers, by the consumers. So hopefully in a year or two we will include Tilaknagar single malts also. So as you know, right now the cost of raw material and other things are increasing. So also packaging materials, etc. So how seriously this cost inflation is affecting the overall health of the company in general and Tilaknagar Industries in particular?
So the inflationary pressures were certainly a very big challenge last year. Post-Ukraine war, I think the prices of the commodities, they just went up irrationally. And it was very hard to really, because we are not in that business, but we didn't know what was happening at all across all the commodities, whether it is glass, whether it is paper, whether it is aluminium, and that all put significant pressure on our inputs. And almost within the year, we've had 3 rounds of increases with our suppliers. And the liquor market being what it is, heavily regulated, and a lot of our business does come from government corporations, so the pass on to the customers is not seamless. So there's really, the company has very little alternative, but for some time you have to absorb that inflation which has come in. You have to absorb it and look at ways and means in which you can have better operating leverage, reduce costs wherever possible, reduce your market spends wherever as possible, and try and protect margins, but it's not entirely possible.
Because you are not allowed to increase your product
we
cost.
could not increase our costs, so that I think resulted in our margins dropping by nearly 300 basis points. Yes, so the margins dropped by almost 300 basis points. But fortunately, there was a silver lining. We had some price increases from important government corporations for us. So that will certainly offset some of the increase in the inflation. And overall also, now we have seen that the commodity prices are easing. So there have been some reductions also, but not very, of course, not to offset the entire increase which has happened. But there has been some easing on the commodity front. So I feel going forward, the combination of the premiumization strategy which we have is that selling higher priced products, some operating leverage which will come consequent to volume growth, and easing of commodity prices that will help
All
margins
together help.
improve. I think combination of all these three factors should help our margins reach mid-teen levels, which it was before onset of war. I think the margins really took a downward trend post Ukraine war. Even today, in terms of the ENA prices, there is pressure, with this FCI not allowing grains to be used for potable alcohol purposes. So there is pressure on the ENA prices even today. So
Right. So some positive improvement.
there is some positive, but yeah, it remains a challenge. I think
It's liquor, so the challenges will always
and
be
we
there.
have heard. I think Diageo has been taking they have been taking a position in terms of linking our prices at least with inflationary trends. I think
Right, yeah,
the
they are.
Diageo MD has been very vocal about that in terms
very
of having some policy where our pricing which we have with government corporations, that is linked to basic inflation, which I feel is it could be a starting step, because there is a significant time lag which happens in terms of having the pass through in terms of increase in our input cost and then passing it on.
So, as you see that taxes are, how weird are they? State governments increase taxes whenever they want, whenever and at whatever price they want, they increase the taxes. So does this lead to higher returns in actual terms, and where does that leave the companies? Do they really get the high revenue by increasing taxes, or?
So I think it's a trade-off, because sometimes the higher taxation that has a downward impact of volumes, there's only that much which you can load onto the system. But that's something which we'll leave to the prudence of the state governments to really determine what's best for them. I think as an organization, the only thing which we can do is be watchful towards moves in policies and have our ears close to the ground and see what type of shifts are happening and how that impacts our product portfolio. And I always feel that somewhere in all of this there would be some opportunities which will be emerging. So we have to just be watchful for that. But yeah, certainly it's a very, very challenging situation because of the unpredictability of the nature, right? We really don't know what is happening, and there's been a lot of talk of a uniform policy, but I really don't see that happening anytime soon.
In near future. Yeah. So as you know, now I think there has been a shift in terms of respecting the industry by the governments. Earlier it was not the case.
Yes.
But it has started a little bit. So do you think still there is a lot of to be done in terms of the healthy business environment for the alcohol industry in different states?
Yes, I think there's certainly a lot to be done. I do agree with you that the engagement is better today than it was before with the state governments. We do have our industry bodies which take a very active and proactive role towards working with government for a policy formulation which will be in the best interests of both. So that's a proactive stand taken by industry association, and government also has been more engaging than what it was in the past. But we don't move away from the fact that we are viewed as a sin industry, something which can be taxed at will, and so that certainly is a challenge. And I think the larger challenge which we spoke about earlier also is in terms of when taxation happens. We feel that as a consumer industry, we should be able to seamlessly pass on to the customer, right? I mean, so that price increase we are not allowed, even if we want to charge more. Sometimes the system doesn't allow us to do that, which is not so in a consumer goods, typically the FMCG industry, which is not there.
Immediately
so I feel that is something which we need to see how we can proactively address that.
Right. So as you have might have seen recently that lots of companies are taking the role in diversity, inclusion, gender diversity and inclusion. So what measures did you take in your company in terms of diversity?
So
and what's your idea about it?
Yeah. So I do have a plan that going forward it should be more diverse. I think if you see even in our head office in Churchgate, if you walk around, I think there's a fair percentage. I think maybe in the corporate head office we might have around 25% employment of ladies, but I think going forward that might steadily increase. So we are proactively moving in that direction, but I think there's a lot more which needs to be done. I think it has been slightly challenging in terms of finding roles in sales and production. So at corporate roles, it's been much easier finding roles for ladies, in corporate jobs, maybe across finance, accounts, legal, taxation,
HR.
secretarial. Talent has been much easier to get in that area, but particularly in sales, I think that function has been it's been very challenging, and also in production, it's been difficult, to get talent, because sometimes many of the factories, they're located deep in interiors, because you will not have the factory in the middle of the city, because it doesn't make sense to have a bottling unit. So they are in remote areas. So to have production and quality talent,
it's difficult.
Yeah, it's difficult. It's very difficult.
Right. So in this competitive era, so people are moving from one company to another company. So what benefits do you offer, your company offer to your employees to retain them, to satisfy them?
Right. So I think that's a very pertinent question. I think that's very evident. People are looking at opportunities, and I don't think there's any dearth of opportunities out there for qualified people with the right amount of experience. There's no dearth of opportunities. I think the way we look at it as a corporate is, to provide a good, comfortable, conducive working environment where people's time and their output is respected and valued, and of course, needless to say, duly compensated also. That's an important element, but I think the workforce today is not only necessarily looking at compensation. I think it's a combination of factors in terms of the flexibility which the organization offers.
Environment.
A good conducive environment. I think people want to work in an environment where they can be heard, where their output, their contribution is respected.
They feel whatever they want to in their field. I think that kind of environment they require.
Correct. Yeah. I think safe and conducive working environments, I think they go a long way.
Yeah.
And I think we are proactively engaging and hoping to create that kind of atmosphere where we don't have regrettable attritions. People who we value as talent, I think they need to be provided with the right platform, and by platform I mean not only compensation but the right challenges also. So they need to be stimulated, because intellectual people want challenges, right? So you want to be challenged, and it's almost like I always take the example.
They feel more energetic when they are challenged.
You have to be challenged, because growth happens only through challenge. When you're working out in the gym, unless you challenge yourself to the resistance, unless there's resistance, you're not going to grow. If you keep lifting that same weight every day, you will not grow. So that resistance has to be there. Once you face resistance, growth will happen only when you are challenged through resistance. And also it has to be that right resistance, right? You don't want to suddenly you're lifting 10 pounds, you can't go to 100 pounds. So that right resistance has to be there, and I think that's how I view our corporate culture, our foundation, our core ethos. I think I'll try and build around these concepts. So
very nice. So whatever you have explained to me till now, do you think that your company is on the right growth trajectory, or do you want to plan something else or something more?
I think we are clearly on right growth trajectory. So my only take to the team is that whatever you all been doing till now, just keep doing more of that. So you don't want to fix something which is not broken, right? So we don't want to be overly adventurous and trying something different.
So company is going on a, as you said, right growth trajectory. So what are your future plans, and where do you want to see the Tilaknagar Industries in, say, like coming 5 years?
So 5 years, definitely, as you know, you pointed out very earlier that we recognize as a mansion house company, but I think aspirationally, and I think over 5 years we would like to invest on other brands also, and I think our endeavor would be to create, I
A
think,
portfolio of different categories.
portfolio
kind
of brands. I think, of course, is very aspirational, but building something as iconic as Mansion House, that
Yeah.
which 40 years down the line from here, we realize that it's iconic brand. All legacy is created. I think
Right.
as a CEO, I think that would really be my aspiration to start working towards that. I think nothing is going to happen
Rather than
overnight.
creating more brands, one more iconic brands you will prefer.
Yes.
That's what. So, this was about the Tilaknagar Industries. What are your outlook for the Indian ALCO web industry for the next 5 years, say? And what do you foresee which can potentially change the ALCO web business in the country? In
So, Shalini, the outlook looks very positive. I think it looks very encouraging the way I see it. There was a setback because of COVID where we had muted growth for 2 years. The industry has bounced back very, very strongly last year with double-digit growth.
yeah.
And just the overall metrics in terms of consumption, I think they look very robust. I think in terms of going forward, young population, the job opportunities, disposable income which will come, I think that's all going to fuel consumption, and I think the outlook for the next 5 years, I think, will be very positive. I'm very, very optimistic about the consumption because I just see, right. I mean, now with the financial leverage also which people are getting in terms of, you have the
Both the partners are working now, so they have disposable incomes and
correct,
all these
and
things
there's so much financial flexibility, right? I mean, you try and buy anything on any of the online, so you get EMI plan, you get there's so many financing options available. So there will be a lot of disposable income, I think, discretionary income which is going to come through, and I think I'm anticipating a very robust growth for the industry over the next 3 to 5 years.
So, Amit,
But I would just like to put a disclaimer that when the industry does tend to grow very strongly, as you pointed out, government does clamp down with heavy taxation, right? So they also try and moderate it. That it is going to be a balance.
Balance, right? So, Amit, your leadership and the steps which you have taken has shown the industry that how one can come out splendidly out of a troubled situation. So, what is your one-line mantra for success for the youngsters?
Well, it's difficult to give really a one-line mantra, but if I
just want to sum it up.
Yeah, I would just say focused and hard work. So you have to just be focused, and there's no substitute for hard work. So I think there was a saying which I read somewhere is that the harder I work, the luckier I got. So don't expect to be lucky, but just keep working hard, work smart.
Right.
And I think our industry has had a lot of inspirational leaders also. I think I draw a lot of inspiration from some of the leaders which our industry has had also in terms of how they've built their businesses and their organizations. So I think our industry also doesn't have a dearth of inspirational leaders. If I were to pick, I think Param Oberoi and Pernod Ricard, he did a splendid job in terms of growing the Seagram's franchise, and Deepak Roy, of course, he's a personal friend and inspirational leader. I think truly remarkable. So I think we have a lot of inspiration also in terms of great leaders which our industry has seen.
Right. Thank you, Amit, for sparing some time and be with us on Let's Talk. It was complete pleasure to talk to you.
It was mine, and thank you for having me.